So, realism. How much realism can add to the experience? How much is too much? Depends, of course, on the medium. You know, is it a movie or series, or is it a game? What kind of game? Like, for example, the level of realism that people find enjoyable in something like a sports sim is going to be very different from an RPG or a strategy game or who knows what, right? Red Dead Redemption 2 added way too much. Good point. It was annoying looting people or skinning animals or looting houses because it just took too freaking long. That's a good point, because realism doesn't need to be a grind fest. It doesn't, like walking simulators, you know, the kind of game where it takes you forever to go from point A to point B. You know, what's the point if there's like a gigantic game world and all you ever do is just trudge around? It's a hiking simulator. Like, there's not really that much content, right? It's realistic for sure, because the real world is like this. You know, the real, like, as full as this planet is, in a way, you know, with humans everywhere and civilization and whatever, there's still huge, gigantic areas that are just completely empty. Who wants that? I sure don't. If you're just sitting there for minutes, just looking at the character doing one task, which is obviously still sped up quite a lot, I don't think is necessary, really. Maybe some people are into that, but I don't think you need that. Like, you can have realism, but you can still have time compression, you know what I mean? Like, you should be able to speed up time and still show what's going on, right? So it's not as tedious. If the game is constantly like, you take 5 steps, oh, you're thirsty. I'm going to take another 10 steps, chop into a tree 3 times. Oh, I'm thirsty again. Okay, yeah, drink some more. All right. Go along, throw 1 javelin at a boar, you know, run after it for 30 seconds. I'm hungry now. Thirsty, hungry, thirsty, hungry, thirsty, hungry. I'm trying to get shit done here. And there are definitely certain hard limits that I personally have. One is keep certain body functions out of the game, okay? I don't want my character to have to take a dump or leak or, you know, it's just, I don't need that. This is just, I mean, okay, there are certain games where this is a relevant gameplay mechanic. Like, I'm thinking, for example, oxygen not included. You actually have to manage waste. So, okay, if it's gameplay relevant, fine. I tend to like in-depth crafting systems where you actually see animations of what the character is doing, as opposed to the character's just standing there doing this. And, you know, the progress bar fills and, oh yeah, I made a boat. Like, what? You did what just now? Oh yeah, I'm forging a sword. It's just, what's going on? Thanks, Miss Ebola. We got all these big games of medieval fights and sieges. I genuinely want to see an in-depth medieval medical simulator. Ooh, yikes. That would be brutal, I think. I mean, okay, there would also be a lot of go fetch this herb and, you know, grind it up in a mortar and pestle with this other herb and mix some chicken shit in there and rub it on the wound and hope it doesn't fester and develop gangrene or something. I love, by the way, that in Elden Ring, they have no durability nonsense. I despise that. It's the wrong kind of realism. For one, it's misguided because weapon durability is just, in the real world, it doesn't really work quite like that. At least not in the sense of, okay, you take 10 swings with a sword, and then it's covered in rust, and, you know, nicks are one thing. You know, nicks and gouges, edge damage, that's going to happen in combat. But it's like, durability is now down to 50%. You go hand it to the blacksmith, who just stands there and just hits the finished sword with his hammer and repairs it that way.
Well, I'm a blacksmith. I can help you. I can blacksmith things. Like putting magics in it, you got to make sure that the magics stick to the blade, because otherwise it's just gonna drip out when you need the magics most. So you don't want that, do you?
Sharpening is one thing. Except the way it's done in Monster Hunter is bizarre, where you have to sharpen your hammers. But, you know, a sharpening mechanic, that actually makes quite a bit of sense. But it's still tedious. So I'm still not sure I want that. In fact, generally, in just about any game, no matter how realistic it is, I don't want durability. I don't want this crap. Go away. It's too tedious. It's annoying. Particularly with the way it is in Breath of the Wild, where, you know, you don't even want to use the weapons you find because they're just going to break like 5 seconds later.
And I have a stick left. Yay!
Yeah.
Oof.
And you just have an inventory full of much better weapons, but you don't even want to use them because you don't want to break them. You want to save them, you know, the same way as you save healing potions. It's like, oh, damn, I'm at 18% health. I have 50 healing potions in my inventory, but I never know when I might need them. I mean, you're different. You don't give a shit. You chug them. You actually use them.
I need a healing potion. I will use a fucking healing potion. I mean, it's the same thing in Breath of the Wild where you just learn at some point, you know by heart where specific weapons can be found. So.
Yeah. I find quite often realism and logical consistency kind of go hand in hand. Nothing's too spooky for me. Bloody screen, but it takes real time, and then you die because you didn't actually heal yourself. You just stood there like a wet mob for 3 hours. Yeah. The bloody screen or muddy screen or whatever mechanic, I'm not a fan of it, I have to say. I kind of see where they're going with it. Like, the more damaged you become, the harder it is to fight, which is okay, yeah, I get that. But in gameplay terms, it kind of sucks to be in the situation where, okay, you just barely made it through this fight, and now the next fight, you're kind of screwed because you can barely see anything. Got a new job, but last super chat, realism is an ingredient like sugar or hot sauce. More/less does not equal better. Depends on the recipe. I like that. Milestone leveling up in D&D, rather than counting experience points, you reach some kind of milestone, clear the dungeon, and get a level. Oh, I see. Okay. So it's more like a story-driven progression. Okay. Thanks for clarifying that. Enlisted, you carry a med pack, but it's useless because you die in one shot. Yay. It's annoying AF because there's no point for the med pack if you die faster than Will Smith's career. Thanks, Tom. This topic reminds me of the 2019 Lion King remake. Ugh. Oof. Big selling point was its realism. Yeah, no. It did not belong there. The end product suffered greatly due to the commitment to an ultra-realistic world. Yeah, that's a terrible, terrible choice. 100%. Hajime no Ippo is a good example. It's a boxing anime, which is... It's a very interesting mix. On the one hand, it's super realistic because it's actually based on real-life boxing techniques. And it does a very good job of showing the tactics and strategies involved. So on the one hand, it's very down to earth. On the other hand, you've got, you know, massive punches with jet engine sounds. I think that's a great way to do it because it's based on realism, and then the presentation is where it's just blown up to larger than life to be more interesting, more entertaining. I also find it hysterical when your character heals by eating something. Oh yeah, Skyrim. You're low on health, you start eating entire cheese wheels. That's pretty funny. I guess that's the one situation where it would be kind of hilarious if there were bowel movements in the game. Because can you imagine the Dovahkiin after eating 10 cheese wheels and an entire sack of cabbages? There would be some force roda, yeah. Unrelenting force, except it's unrelenting bowel evacuation after 15 cheese wheels. Some seemingly unrealistic tropes are realistic things just executed wrong. The back scabbard, for instance, would be realistic if the swordsman wore them with the hilts behind the opposite shoulder. To an extent, yeah, there is still a certain limit. Like, I definitely have swords that I could not draw that way, unless you have like a specialized scabbard that's open on the side. Things like that, like the one Chad made, that's That's a different story that works. Perfectly realistic games are worthless because we have RL at home. Not really. There are some cases where it makes sense. Like, for example, if like most people are not going to become professional race car drivers, right? But they might want to play a hyper-realistic racing simulator because they enjoy kind of imagining themselves in this position. So, yeah, sure, why not? Let's leave it at that. Let me know what you think. It was fun to just hang out and talk about things. So, thanks for that.